Welcome back in to Revealing the Truth. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, your host, and we're spending this day talking about human trafficking, a global problem. As I was researching for today's show, and this was several months ago, that I had the idea to do a special on human trafficking, I happened to come upon a story that touched my heart. And as you know, our vision here at Revealing the Truth is to touch on the headlines, but also the heartlines and biblical truth. And I read the story about a group of advocates who were facing a problem that happened to be in a place that I was aware of. Each year, I don't know the staggering numbers of motorcycle advocates that converge on Sturgis, but it's close to 100,000 people, I believe. Is that correct?
Or more, I think.
100,000 or more motorcycle enthusiasts. And that doesn't sound like it's connected to our story on human trafficking at all. But knowing how many friends that I have who are motorcycle enthusiasts and who do attend, especially my friends from California, this event, I stumbled across a group who face a problem, and Sturgis is a symptom of a particular problem that they face. Now, when I introduce you to this guest, you're probably going to have the same reaction that I had, which is I had absolutely no idea, one, of the scope of the problem of human trafficking, but even lower down on the scale was my awareness that such a problem would exist on an Indian reservation or within a Native American community. And I read a story about a group called Native Hope. Now, Native Hope is based in Chamberlain, South Dakota, a state picturesque in its natural beauty, including wild open plains, rushing waters, of course, the awe-inspiring Badlands, and the stunning forest of the Black Hills. It's also home to 9 Native American reservations in 4 of the poorest counties in the United States. Now, here in Alabama, we have in Wetumpka a reservation and a community of Native Americans. Where I came to Alabama from Georgia, we had burial mounds all across Georgia, and we're quite aware of the history. But I think people have seemed to have turned a deaf ear to the plight of the Native American Indian and what their life must be. The fact that human trafficking happens to be something that knows no race, knows no boundaries of community, knows no limitation in its breadth and its scope, happens to have a direct impact on this group from South Dakota. And I felt this was a story we need to tell here on Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. And so I spoke with Julie Muldoon, the director, and asked her what the story was about Native Hope, why she, a non-Native American, was there serving, what some of the challenges were that they were facing, and felt compelled to share this story with our audience here today in this special that we're doing on human trafficking. Julie Muldoon is the director, and she offers Native Hope an array of experience in leading various teams. To make Native Hope a success, she knows we must shine light on the success of the Native American people to create possibilities for all. And she's joined at the table with Ambassador Tricia Burke, who is a creative content specialist there. And she arrived at Native Hope after 23 years of teaching English and directing theater. And her passion is storytelling, and her ability to connect with others enables her to do so with truth and vitality. And also joined at the table with them from Native Hope is Candace Middleton. I wanted to welcome all three of you to Revealing the Truth and sharing the story of what's going on with Native Hope. And earlier today, I had a victim, a former victim of human trafficking. Our guest right after her, right before you, was Nancy Hartwell, a prolific author who uses the pen to write fictional stories about harem slaves based on her experience in living in Cameroon, and they have been bestsellers. And now we are here with you to kind of explore another symptom of the problem, but one that so profoundly affects your particular community, and that is human trafficking from the reservation of young girls, and I'm not sure if it affects boys as well, but young girls being recruited especially to service the community at Sturgis during this large gathering of motorcycle enthusiasts. Julie, can you kind of share with me the vision that you shared with me about Native Hope?
Sure. So just one quick correction. Kansas here is actually our ambassador.
Okay.
And so I wanted to just share a little bit about Native Hope. So Native Hope is a new nonprofit, and like you mentioned, we're in South Dakota. And along with the sex trafficking, we also focus on other areas. That would be education and the culture of the Native American community. But this idea of the human trafficking and the issues that happen on the reservation, stemmed fairly quickly because we are a new nonprofit. And so we did take a team down there and talked with the bikers and the vendors there, and it overall was a great experience on our end because we didn't really know what we were walking into. We were just there to raise awareness and educate on the topic. We partner with organizations that actually work with victims and help counsel them, and Tricia here has actually worked with some victims to tell their story through our blog. So it's kind of an overall team effort, but it's definitely an issue that we focus on here at Native Hope, and we're proud to work with the organizations that we work with, and then also pretty proud to get this word out and get this information on such a horrific crime that's happening.
Well, on your blog at nativehope.com, you kind of share the information that we have shared, but in particular, you're focusing on the Native American community. And although this is a global issue, very close to home, Native American women and children make up 40% of the sex trafficking victims in the state of South Dakota alone. Now, are you finding that this is common across other Native American communities?
Well, I think, like you mentioned, there's high poverty here in South Dakota and on the reservations, and I think some of the traffickers know that, and they use that against some of the vulnerable young women and children that are on the reservation. They can come in and promise maybe some things that they don't have as far as food or shelter or safety. And anywhere across the U.S., if you walk into an area with poverty, it's probably pretty easy to get some women and children to follow you and get them involved in this trafficking issue. So I guess that would kind of be why our focus here on the reservation and how that really affects Native Hope.
How long has Native Hope been?
And that it's not only the women.
I'm sorry?
I was just going to add that it is also an issue with young men, too.
Yes. I think the numbers, staggeringly as they are, is 65% women, 45% or 35% men, or boys, if you will, who are being trafficked. So there seems to be a robust appetite for pedophilia, for sexual action activities with young boys and girls, and the promise seems to be the same whether or not you're in the inner city, whether or not you're in the suburbs, or whether or not you're on an Indian reservation. The promise and the hype seem to be the same.
We would agree.
Native Hope was formed, how long have you been around?
Last year is when we actually officially launched Native Hope. So we are a new nonprofit, getting on our feet and kind of making the connections and the partnerships and getting out into the community. And Sturgis was one of those sort of outreaches to get our name out and talk with the community and also pretty much people all over the world.
Are you finding yourself connecting with other ministries and outreach organizations who are focusing on the human trafficking problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think with sex trafficking and any, huge topic like this, you have to collaborate and build partnerships, because I'm not sure that one organization can do it all on such a huge issue that this is. And so we actually work with some organizations throughout South Dakota, and we've attended some of their events, and we're working with them. And we have another one this week that we're going up to Sioux Falls to show our support and collaboration on this topic. And like you said, because it is the Human Trafficking Awareness Month, we want to make sure that we take the effort in the
Now, knowing that the reservation is set apart on Indian land, are you receiving support for this particular initiative through the Department of Indian Affairs, or are you purely self-funded?
Purely self-funded. So we partner with some of the, one of our partners is Wachoni Wawokia, which is on the Crow Creek Reservation. And so we're partnering with individual organizations to kind of tackle this head on.
As I think about this, and I realize that human trafficking knows no race, knows no religion. It never would have occurred to me, as I shared with you, that the Native American community are primarily the forgotten people of American history. And so to think that this universal problem affects that community as well makes it, I think there's much less of an ear to the plight of the Native American than possibly any other group that's affected by this.
I think you're exactly right. I think right now, no matter what, these people are already suffering, but their poverty and the issues that they're facing make them such an easy target. And the fact that there are some booms that happen, for instance, we have rally, which is a boom in economic boom, brings many people. So then there's also a hunting season, and then of course the oil fields in North Dakota have been bringing this sex trafficking right into our state. It's just become an issue, a prevalent issue, I think, within the last decade, where it's really surged to the top.
Now, do you have within the reservation structure your own police force, your own law enforcement, your own system of protection, or are you dependent on the South Dakota State Police or outside agencies?
So for us on the reservation, I actually I still live on the reservation in Lord Row. So yes, we actually we have our own governing body. We have our own tribal police. We actually go through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So we have BIA, police, BIA, firefighters, things like that. But because of the lack of because of the poverty we're in, I guess, we're down in our police force. We don't have, I guess, all over the United States, the law enforcement is down, so we don't have too much police officers back at home, I know, and that's just everywhere else.
Right.
And then, so at the moment, we don't have a partnership with the state highway patrol or anything that they're allowed to come regulate, and our officers are, I guess we have to stay within our jurisdiction.
So, in addition to having a problem with the global issue of human trafficking, you have certain limitations on being able to provide police investigatory action on non-Indian offenders, or those who are purveyors of these services trying to recruit young women off the reservation. There's really not much you can do other than awareness.
Actually, you're pretty much right on that. Just kind of said was, if an outside trafficker comes in and takes our women or children, and our police actually catch them, there's not much our police can do. They can kind of detain the guy for a little bit. They can't really handcuff him and detain him the way they'd like to. They could just kind of stand there and talk with him until, I guess, highway patrol would come. And usually, it takes at least an hour for highway patrol to come from anywhere, wherever they're generally located, to, Lord Brew's reservation, where I'm from. So, if we was to catch a trafficker on our reservation, yeah, by all rights, he can just walk away freely because we have no jurisdiction on him. So, yes, all we have right now is awareness, and I guess we pray that the highway patrol can hurry over.
And I think an important part of Native Hope is we do believe that we can prevent some of that by funding some programs that work with women and children, and hopefully, men as we're growing, young men, about understanding the value of what they're worth, and kind of giving them educating and signs of a trafficker, so we can prevent them getting into that situation. And then the victims as well, with counseling and sheltering. So we may not be able to do anything directly, but if we can prevent and help the recovery process, then we're kind of working from both ends.
Are you working with other reservations around the country? Is this a common problem or a universal problem around the Native American community?
Well, right now we're just focusing within South Dakota, and I don't have any information about outside reservations outside of South Dakota. But yes, eventually we'd like to work on all the reservations within South Dakota and tackle that first.
I think based on responses we've had to our story and Facebook, etc., we are hearing that it is common, but we don't have any direct statistics. But we have had a huge response from around the country, which is wonderful. It's one of our lead stories and campaigns that people are responding to. So we're really excited that we can start to raise that awareness, and hopefully we're doing it effectively.
Well, it certainly captured my attention, and you might have been surprised at my call when I called to see about having you on the program, but it really did touch my heart that this problem that we have so buried our head in the sand about, that so many people seem to be completely uninformed and unaware of, the magnitude of the problem, how many families it affects. I can imagine that in an already difficult situation such as life on the reservation, that adding this component to it is more of an exponentially devastating problem than it may be for the average community.
And I think you're right on about, having our heads in the sand, and the United States doesn't really even know that much about sex trafficking or human trafficking. And so I think the first step is just educating some of these $32 billion industry. I mean, that just blows my mind. And I think you have to just take step by step to educate people. And then, yeah, and in fact that, not only are we having some challenges within the reservations here in South Dakota, we're adding that on top of it. So that's kind of our motivation with Native Hope as to why we're really focusing hard, because we have kind of two challenges ahead of us.
Well, it sounds like quite a task, and I want to commend you for feeling the calling to support that community that are really the forgotten people.
I wanted to add, and maybe Kansas can add to this, how difficult it would be for these families on the reservations. And when you think about the size of a reservation, the population is quite small. It's usually very spread out. And that adds to the problem, is that, for instance, the Pine Ridge Reservation is the size of Connecticut. And it has 45 communities in 9 districts. When you think about that, I think there are only 4,000 people who live in that area. And so we're seeing that a lot of the trafficking can happen via drug cartels, and especially the Mexican drug cartel. And what's happening is they'll go into a small community, and these communities are not the traditional American community as we would see it. They're very family, all an extended family, and they'll pretty much target this entire community of people, which might only be 95 to 100 people who live there, and so they're just taking it community by community, and these communities might be 100 miles apart, and it's just devastating, because it's the drug cartel is pushing the trafficking, because people will become dependent on them, and of course that's part of the human trafficking issue, and I think in all impoverished places is the drug industry too. And we're hearing grandmas, and I really would love grandmas about these issues, and they just never knew this would hit them, and it really has hit us hard here in South Dakota.
Well, it's quite fascinating to me that as in the world of nature, that those that are remote are the ones that are attacked. Those are the ones that are targeted. They're easy to pick off. They don't have the large communities surrounding them. I think most of us are so consumed in our world that we don't consider that other worlds exist, that other lifestyles exist. And when I heard the story of Native Hope, when I went to your website, nativehope.com, and read of what you were trying to accomplish, I felt that it was significant, because it is the perfect exemplification of how widespread an issue this is. That it's not just Los Angeles, it's not just New York City, it's not just Miami, Florida. It is the Indian reservation in South Dakota, that this is at such an epidemic level that there is no community which is immune from the touch and the sting and the heartbreak and the heartache of human trafficking. Imagine that mother that comes to find her 12-year-old daughter gone and has no way to communicate with anyone as to where she has gone. Whether or not she's run away because she didn't like the reservation life, she ran away because she was enticed, recruited, and it winds up that she becomes a victim of human sex trafficking. I'm sure it is not the goal of anyone growing up in your community, as it is not the goal here for anybody who sets the heart's desire on becoming sold into prostitution or sold into the drug trafficking arena. So we've talked about major initiatives out of Washington. We've talked about major initiatives out of Tampa, Florida, and international communities. But once again, as I looked at this, I felt that this was the community that if I didn't help bring some awareness to it, that I was only perpetuating a problem. So we're about to go to break. We're talking with Julie Muldoon and part of her team of ambassadors there at Native Hope in South Dakota, at the Indian reservation there that is facing the exact same plight of human trafficking, the recruiting of the young girls and young boys off the reservation, being sold into the sex trafficking or sex trade, the drug trade, and right down the road is the largest United States gathering of motorcycle enthusiasts at Sturgis, which is the largest consumer of sex trafficking in that particular area. So when we come back from break, we're going to explore this problem a little bit more, as during this month of January, Human Trafficking Awareness Month, we're giving some focus and hopefully some attention to Native Hope at nativehope.com, and we'll be right back.
Elizabeth Kramer, associate producer of Revealing the Truth on the Igniting a Nation Broadcasting Network. And we have very exciting news to you regarding our new website, ianbn.com. Not only will you be able to live stream our programs, but you'll be able to go back and check out old programs as well. Just check out the TV Archives tab on our homepage. Missed any of Rabbi's rants? You can check out and catch up on all of those there as well. So many of you have been asking about our past teachings, such as the Torah teachings, the Jewish roots and history classes, as well as the prophecy and the news clips. Well, you can go back and research all of those there on the website as well. So check out ianbn.com for more. In addition, we'll have a newsletter regarding any of our special guests that we have here in the studio, as well as more materials. Check it out and you won't regret it. If you'd like to join our conversation further here at the Igniting a Nation Broadcasting Network, check us out and use hashtag Igniting a Nation, as well as Revealing the Truth on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
This is the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of Revealing the Truth, right here on the Igniting a Nation Broadcasting Network, inviting you to join me every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday for our prophecy and the news classes. Each week I take the headlines from around the world that have a biblical connection and present them in a way that brings the news and the Bible to life. There are over 2,500 prophecies in the Bible, and there are so few classes available to see how they connect with world events. We cover everything from Islamic terrorism to the changing relationships between Russia, Turkey, Iran, Syria, and Israel. Prophecy is unfolding before our very eyes, and to many, it is complicated and hard to understand. In just 1 hour each week, you'll be given the tools and the biblical connection to world events. With so much going on and so few reliable sources of news, I encourage you to join me every Monday night at 7 o'clock p.m. at St. Mark United Methodist Church in Northport, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at Beechwood Baptist Church in Mount Olive, and every Thursday night at 7 p.m. at Mountain Chapel United Methodist Church in Vestavia. If you want to make sense out of what's happened in the world around you, this is the class for you. All are welcome. Times and location addresses can be found on our website at ianbn.com. I hope to see you there. Shalom.
Igniting a Nation Ministries is devoted to spreading the message of the gospel to as many people as possible. And like many ministries, we need funding to keep going. Your contributions are greatly appreciated, and we want to be able to send you some of the resources that we've been creating here at Igniting a Nation. We will be presenting you with special offers throughout the month, and I'm excited to share our first special offer with you. During the month of January, Rabbi Eric will be sending you 2 of his many titles with a contribution of $50 or more. This is a fully tax-deductible contribution to Igniting a Nation. You will receive a signed copy of Rabbi Eric's latest biblical thriller, The Codist, which discusses maybe some of the options Satan is taking in our modern age to disrupt our relationship with God. In addition, you will receive a signed copy of Lessons Learned from the Tree of Life. This Bible study has remained in the top 100 best-selling Messianic titles for 5 straight years. Everyone from small groups at churches all across the world to inmates in women's prisons have been using this Bible study, and through it, lives are being changed. Your gift of $50 or more should be made payable to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. Make sure to mark in the memo section offer number 2017-1. Visit our website, ianbn.com, to see the entire list of books available through our partnership with Amazon.
Welcome back to Revealing the Truth with the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker as your host. We're joined today with Native Hope, a ministry, if you will, based in Chamberlain, South Dakota, that really is providing across a number of 9 Native American reservations across South Dakota and 4 of the poorest counties in the United States, where they actually are offering programs providing education, protecting at-risk youth, and honoring their culture and their heritage. And I'm looking at their webpage, Native Hope, and these are 3 very strong pillars of your organization. That Native Hope views education as successfully graduating from high school and planning for a career. These Native American youth are leaders and mentors for the next generation. They know their culture and embrace it as part of who they are, the same way as I, as a Jewish believer, have not given up my identity as a Jew, because I've joined with a larger community of people that believe in Jesus. I've maintained my Jewish identity and my heritage as it's been preserved for thousands of years. And I believe that each one of us has that right to embrace our heritage and our roots and continue so that we don't lose what we had. It was rich for our forefathers. It is rich for our generation, and it establishes a certain sense of community and family which binds us together. The second pillar of Native Hope is protecting at-risk youth from teen suicide, domestic abuse, rape, and sex trafficking are urgent issues plaguing Native American youth living on reservations. The truth can be unsettling, but it needs to be told. Most importantly, real people desperately need help. The Indian reservations are no different than our inner cities. They're no different than our more affluent neighborhoods. They face the exact same problems. And this problem of human trafficking happens to hit this group in South Dakota especially hard because of a national and even worldwide event called Sturgis. This is one of the largest gatherings, if not the largest gathering in the world, of motorcycle enthusiasts. And this is the area in which human sex traffickers and drug traffickers will recruit from the reservations, and this is an ever-present problem in trying to stem the growth of, or stem the reduction in the active youth, 12, 13, 14-year-old boys and girls who have grown up on the reservation and hearing the promise of a better life at the hands of someone who can offer them even much worse than they already have. And the third pillar of Native Hope is honoring culture and heritage, language, traditional ceremonies, art, family. For Native Americans, these things aren't just part of their lives, they form their identity. Our goal is not just to see Native American culture preserved, but honored, embraced, and thriving, and I commend you for that. I think we've forgotten who was here when we got here. I think we've forgotten the plight of the Native American. I think we have chalked up alcoholism and drug abuse and poverty as being the response from the Indian community to the pressures that have been imposed upon them. But as we look at humanity, in God's eyes, there's no one less than or greater than. That every community upon the face of the earth has been created by God, and we share in the same Creator. How we worship that Creator becomes an individual practice and preference. I personally believe that His plan of salvation through Jesus was the path to heaven. You may or may not agree with that or believe in that. However, your community is at risk. your community is under attack, and you share a common attack from the drug cartel, who also is an arm of recruitment for human trafficking. And so, regardless of the circumstances of either your faith or your economic condition, you are as much on their radar as our city here in Birmingham, Alabama is. And therefore, we share that in common. And the approach you're taking is something that we should be connecting with as well and hearing about as well. You can never gather enough information, gather enough tools for someone else's idea that may be effective in our community is something that we should adopt. So in this year since you created Native Hope, are there any successes that you can share with us as to where you've been able to intervene? And I know you have several on the blog. Maybe you would share one of those stories with us.
Sure. Well, I think we've had a huge rally behind Native Hope and who we are and what we're about. And that shows within, our website visits and our social media followers, and like Tricia was mentioning the amount of support and that people have rallied behind us. Our main goal is to fund very vital programs that are making a difference within Indian country. And so we have some supporters and donors that believe in us. So we have some success with, raising that money. And I think an important part of Native Hope is 100% that we receive programs that, are helping prevent sex trafficking or helping with those victims, or educational programs or cultural classes. So that's a key aspect of Native Hope, is that 100% model that we have. That's a huge success of ours. So along the facts of the, building our partnerships, we were able to build 5 strong partnerships last year to kind of help launch us and show that we are within the community, and, we believe in the programs of our partners, and then we have our own programs as well. And I think going to Sturgis, and then we had a hunting campaign, because along with Sturgis, we have the opening of pheasant season hunting here is huge, and people all across the country come to South Dakota for that reasoning, which brings another opportunity for sex trafficking to happen here in South Dakota. So we rallied behind that campaign, and we had people from all over the U.S. that helped support us as far as passing out information or sharing our stories or our blogs with their community to help, raise awareness about Native Hope and who we are. But I think one thing I wanted to just point out about Sturgis and hunting season is, they are great events for South Dakota, and a lot of people come to take advantage of, what that event represents: fun time, camaraderie, family. And so we wanted to be really sensitive to make sure that we weren't displaying those events as, they're always bringing in sex trafficking, but we wanted to make sure we were just raising awareness on the topic and educating.
Well, Julie,
Julie, and I think we did a really great job.
You broke up there just a little bit, Julie, but you are not a Native American, is that correct?
I'm not Native American, no.
Okay. What called you specifically to this work?
Well, I'm not originally from South Dakota. I'm actually from Ohio, and my husband has lived in South Dakota, and we had, when we met, we moved out here so growing up in Ohio and living in California, I didn't really know much about the Native American culture, so I was actually really shocked when I moved here to get to know the people and the culture and what it was all about, because I felt kind of deprived my whole life. Like, how could I move to this state and not know really anything about Native Americans or the community or their culture? And so that's kind of been my drive, is just educating myself on what the culture is about. And then, when you learn a little bit about what's actually happening on the reservations, and the sex trafficking pulls at my heart a lot, because I'm a mother, and to think of girls ages 12 to 15 being trafficked, that's just that's a huge passion of mine.
Okay. And Tricia, what about you?
Well, I taught for 23 years, right, here in Chamberlain, and I taught a large number of students over those years, but especially number of. Over the years, I came to understand a lot more and more about the troubles they were facing, and thankfully, the stereotypes were broken down for me bit by bit. Year after year, student after student, I learned something new that I didn't know, because I'm a native of Chamberlain. I grew up here, and I, as a non-native person, I kind of thought, oh, I knew all this. I grew up here, but everything just kept breaking down the more I entered their lives, and especially as I began to teach my older students. I started in 8th grade, and I taught all the way up to 12th graders. And once I started to get involved with these juniors and seniors, and I started to see their lives falling apart shortly after they left high school. I mean, they were doing really well, and they were bright as any other student, of course, and they had promising futures, great support from their families. And once they stepped out the doors, there were things that were happening. And for me, it was killing me, literally. I thought, I have got to find a way to make a difference on a different level now. I'd done what I could do at that point. And so now, honestly, I've been in touch with lots of my students who have had some trials, but are now on their way to being successful. And I'm reaching out to them to hopefully tell their stories in order to empower these younger people to have confidence in themselves. And so that's what called me. My kids have called me. They're now in their 30s, and they're so excited to tell their stories and generation. So that's why I'm here.
Well, that's very exciting. Now, from the inside, from someone who lives on the reservation, when you saw the Native Hope initiative being formed by Julie and then Tricia coming in, how did that make you feel?
So actually, I first heard about Native Hope through my twin brother, who actually knew Tricia, and they got to talking. He kind of shared some things with me. I got to checking them out and read up on some of their stories they've had completed already, and then read their mission and all of the programs and projects that they have going on. And myself, I actually came from the education field. On the reservation I live in, I was teaching at elementary, and just try to, through my own life, was doing some of the things that Native Hope actually already does. Trying to, the vision they have is something I already, kind of was living myself in my community. Was trying to help with education, trying to help with, the youth that have problems, and trying to help with my own culture and traditions and stuff. So I found out about Native Hope and was like, man, I gotta be a part of these guys. They're a great organization trying to do great things for my people. Like, what can I do to help them? Help us.
Right.
If that makes sense. But having Native Hope is to be able to help our communities is major. The things that they focus on is exactly what our youth, what our adolescents need. I'm actually 28 years old myself, but it's what I still need in my life. I still need the support from them. I still need there's their hope that they give off. And for myself to be affiliated with such a great organization to help out, my very own people, it's, how can you lose? So I just, love everything that Native Hope stands for, and just to be able to help out the Native people that I am part of, it's that much more rewarding. Julie and Tricia are both great women, with great hearts. we have another worker that works with us who isn't here today, who's just, their passion for our people is just, it's, you can't find that every day from people. And, that their hearts are in the right place. So, I just have this great feeling and knowing that, with Native Hope, with Julie, Tricia, and Aaron, some of our circumstances on the reservation will change because of their efforts.
Well, I can only tell you that from an outsider's point of view, as I looked at and I talked to ministries all over the world, I felt very impassioned. First of all, that you have a story to tell, and if you don't know that there's a story out there, you don't go looking for it. If you're not aware that there's something happening here within the shores of our own country that is not getting any press, it's not getting any coverage, but you are as equally, maybe even statistically more impacted per person, per capita, than any other community in the nation, that's something that is noteworthy and we need to talk about. Yes, South Dakota is the favorite hunting grounds of many famous people who talk about their trips and their journeys to hunt there, to hunt the Badlands, to visit the Badlands, the Black Hills. It has such rich culture and heritage in the development and the move west in America. But we tend to forget that there are people living there, real people with real problems, real people with real challenges, real people with less support because of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, because there are buffers, there are, for as many positive programs as there are as much red tape as there is in being able to get attention and support. So I felt that here on Revealing the Truth, through our ministry, which is called Igniting a Nation, our view of the world is a biblical worldview, advancing the cause of Christianity and the Bible going forth. Yet our conversation hasn't been about Christianity or the Bible or about the saving grace of God through the Messiah. What we talked about today are real problems tugging at the hearts of your community that share in a common suffering with all communities that are affected by this problem of human trafficking, the problem of the impoverished being taken advantage of and being targeted as places of recruiting because they're going to meet with little resistance. And awareness and education builds a foundation of resistance. And so we want to tell your story. We want to tell your story and tell people to visit your webpage at nativehope.com, to like your page on Facebook, to get involved, to follow you on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and like their page and help people become aware of the plight of Native Hope. If it's happening here, it's happening to the Seminole Indians in Florida. It's happening to the Cherokee Indians. It's happening to the Chautauqua Indians up north. It's happening to any group that's living on a reservation. It's happening in our inner cities. You are not immune to the problems that we face, and I felt quite compelled to share that story of what you're up against. So we pray a blessing over you, that God would supernaturally provide for your work. You have committed to take 100% of all public donations that you receive from people like ourselves goes directly to specific work, including those managed by the Partners Organization. You don't take out for overhead, you don't take out for administrative costs. You put every dollar to work within your organization, you are a nonprofit organization, is that correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so you're 501c3?
Yes.
Okay, and so every contribution to Native Hope is tax deductible. And if you have a heart for what they're doing, it may not specifically be for the advancement of the church. It may not be specifically for the advancement of the gospel. But part of the gospel mission is that we help the fatherless, we help the orphan, we help the downtrodden, we help those that cannot help themselves. We become the hands and feet of God on earth to be able to support those that need help. And I've looked at your need, and it is a noble cause that you are supporting. It is a cause that is worthy of attention. It is an effort to equip and to raise a generation which will have lasting importance, not only within your community, but as you have someone who has graduated and gone on to now work in the Bureau of Indian Affairs in Washington, D.C. to advance the cause, that you are making a difference. And we want to be a part of telling the story of those who make a real difference. Not a perceived distant difference, but a real difference. So I thank you for coming on Revealing the Truth, coming on with us today to share what's going on in South Dakota. And I agree with you that you should be promoting these events not as a source of negativity, but a source of positive exchange and awareness. That if you can go speak to the hunters, if you can go speak to the people at Sturgis, if you can make them aware, if you can work with local law enforcement and make them aware as to what to look out for, if you can educate within your community to families and to identify when there is a troubled youth who is struggling both in school or in social environments, who may be the ideal candidate to recruit, that you are able to be made aware of them so that you can get to them first before the trafficker gets to them. I think that you are to be applauded for what you're doing, and I compliment you and support you, Native Hope, and thank you for being on Revealing the Truth with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Eric. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you. You've been listening. You've been listening to Revealing the Truth with the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker. We've spent today talking about Human Traffic Awareness Month, the month of January.